Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another evening broadcast live from the 17th International Keyboard Institute and Festival in New York City, which is held at Hunter College in the Kaye Playhouse. My name is Eduard Zilberkant, and I'm joined this evening by my co-host, Claire Huancy. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. You're in for a real treat this evening. We're going to be hearing a very invigorating program of real staples of the piano repertoire, which include Bach, Busoni, Chaconne, Brahms, Handel variations, as well as the four scherzos by Chopin.
And this will be performed by Arnaldo Cohen, who's a really wonderful pianist, and he is one of the winners that we have this year, sort of featuring of the Busoni competition, also gold medal. We had Jerome Rose, who was the first concert of the festival, and he was the gold medal prize winner. We have Arnaldo Cohen tonight, and then on Friday night, sort of closing off almost this series, will be Alexander Kobrin, who won gold medal at the Busoni, as well as the Van Cliburn and the top prizes in Chopin and Hamamatsu and other competitions.
It's really interesting that all three pianists will be traveling later to Botswana this year to be on the jury of the upcoming Busoni competition, I think later in August, and also to perform. And this is like a extension of that.
Exactly. And again, we are here talking to you before David Dubal is going to come out in a few minutes, and he's going to be dealing with the pre-concert lecture about this evening's performance. But one of the things I'd like to mention, I know that David Dubal will be traveling in the next couple of days, and I know that, for example, tomorrow night's performance, Victor Rosenbaum, which will be very special, and that is he's playing Beethoven's 109, 110, and 111. That's the last three sonatas of Beethoven of the 32 that he's composed. And before that, Jerome Rose is actually going to be discussing the sonatas as a pre-concert lecture and some demonstrations and everything.
Yeah, so I think Jerome Rose is the perfect man for the job. I mean, he has recorded, he's performed these three in concert, a monumental program by any standard, and I'm looking forward very much to that.
Exactly,
So
and there are Blu-rays and CDs, everything available of Jerome Rose playing these particular monumental works, so it's going to be a very special performance. And as we mentioned, we're sort of approaching the last few days of our festival, and it certainly has been an exciting 2 weeks of the kind of pianism that we've heard, all the students, all the performers. It's really has been a very exciting time.
Absolutely. This is our first year at the Hunter College. For the first time, we moved from Manus this summer, and I think we felt very welcome. It's been a great 2 weeks of learning, of studying, coaching, and great performances. And I am so happy that I've been here too.
It's a wonderful facility. The students really enjoy themselves. We owe, of course, great thanks to Hunter College administration, everything, for opening up the school for us with many floors, so students have practice facilities, as well as rooms that they've dedicated to this event. But we cannot say thank you enough to the Yamaha Corporation, who has generously not only provided the two magnificent grand pianos that have been used on stage for the entire festival, which is the magnificent CFX concert grand, which is going to be played this evening, but also the Busendorfer piano, the new model, which has just been released. and both of those pianos are part of the Yamaha team, and they've been graciously, but in addition to those two instruments, they've also donated more than 50 instruments for these 2 weeks, so that all the faculty that are here can give master classes to all the students, and then of course all the performances and students are also able to practice. And
it's truly unusual that I'm not used to having lessons in a 2-piano room. Usually it's more like you're teaching and then could you get up and perhaps I can show you something, but this is so convenient. 2 pianos, we're very spoiled here.
Exactly. I mean, always wonderful grands, and students. We have 120 students who have chosen to come here this particular summer, and they've been getting lots of lessons. They sign up for many of the artists, and all the artists that appeared on the stage in these evening performances have given master classes, individual in a specialized way, but also in a general way. There are a lot of us that are teaching on a daily basis for between 3 and 6 hours, dealing with students, because students are very eager to do as much as they possibly can and get as much information and as much knowledge in these 2 weeks, which makes it, again, very special for them with what this festival brings.
I think truly it's the enthusiasm here that's that I found so stimulating, and not only from the students but also from the other faculty members. We've had so many performances. I've had the pleasure of performing with Eduard, and there was just such kind of tension and happy anticipation on stage, and I think this whole thing has translated into the entire festival done by Jerome Rose. So.
Exactly, and that's what makes this festival so special and so unique in New York. I mean, we're in the heart of Manhattan, basically between Park Avenue and Lexington Avenue at 68th Street. And if you are in the city, and if you are anywhere even close by, not just in the city, you still have opportunity in the last 4 days to really come and experience everything that's happening here. There's still some daily passes available for you to come and hear master classes, which are being taught every day. Of course, in the evening, we have performances. Like I said, this evening, Arnaldo Cohen will be giving a great performance. Tomorrow, Victor Rosenbaum is giving a performance of the last 3 Beethoven sonatas. We have Alexander Kobrin on Friday night performing, and then a sort of a gala finish, sort of showcasing the young generation of pianists. There are 3 pianists that are going to be appearing on the program from exactly of again the younger. There used to be there's a master series and an upcoming prestige series, and some young artists will be featured on that particular concert. Also, starting tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, the Mackenzie International Piano Competition and Awards are going to be held here, which is basically open to the participants, the 120 students who are here. I believe there are over 35 contestants who've decided to try to take part in this, and they are competing for over $10,000 in prize money for this, and they will be judged by the international faculty here. And there's going to be 3 rounds of competitions with, they have to submit hour and 20 minutes worth of music. And then in addition to that, they have to then, basically the judges, they come out in the first round, they play about 10 minutes. In the second round, they play about 30 minutes. And then those that pass into the final round get to play a full 1-hour recital. So starting at 1:30 tomorrow, there will be the preliminaries, then the semifinals will be on Saturday, and then Sunday, a very special sort of performance between 11 and 1 for the first 2 contestants, and then the last 2 between 2 and 4 will be the big event here, sort of to conclude the entire festival.
A worthy culmination. I've had the chance to see some of the programs. Everyone has now submitted it, and I have to say these are really, really wonderful staples of the repertoire, and I'm very excited. I mean, I think the students here, they've really worked hard for the last 2 weeks. They're practicing so much, and for them, this is a really big competition. I mean, this is a fantastic opportunity to kind of show what they've learned in the last 2 weeks. For many of them, I guess this is even their first time coming abroad for a master class, and I really can't think of a better way. I wish I had done it when I was a bit younger.
And again, what's so special, to perform in New York City is always very special and very exciting. I mean, this is the place where everybody wants to play. And to have a competition and this type of festival where you do have opportunities to play in master classes. And in these master classes, you first walk out and you perform pieces. So you are on this stage, not only the stage that we're here at Kaye Playhouse, but each time, and there's a lot of discussion, and then you get to learn with this. And then the culmination of the competition, obviously, for those chosen few, in the finals, they will have an opportunity to walk out in Lang Recital Hall, the other smaller venue here at Hunter College, which is, again, a really beautiful facility, which we're very fortunate to deal with. And they will perform basically a full 1 hour recital. So it's a very exciting time for them.
Absolutely, and who knows who's in the public? I mean, we've been having really knowledgeable people coming and really sitting in not only for the big master classes in Lang, but also for the private lessons. I mean, I've been really having a very interested public coming in who seem truly, genuinely interested in the music. And all of these people, they will be coming to show their support, so be sure to join us as well.
Exactly. And again, that is what it's so special about the International Keyboard Institute and Festival, which is in its 17th year with Jerome Rose as the founder and director of it. He's a visionary in that respect, in the heart of Manhattan, basically for the last 2 weeks, basically. The eyes of the world, I should say, especially since you're watching us, and we have people everywhere from Australia to China to Taiwan to all over Europe and everywhere, basically tuning in and seeing what's happening, and the unique opportunity that every night there's a different piano recital. And again, just highlights of what we've heard this year. We had Jerome Rose play a magnificent recital. We had Alan Goldstein. We had faculty recitals. Magdalena Bashevska played an incredible performance of the Goldberg Variations, both on the harpsichord and on the piano. Again, a feat, as you mentioned, that Rosalind Turing at Carnegie Hall. Exactly. So we have Claire Huanci, who's a tremendous pianist in her own right, and we had an opportunity to collaborate, as you mentioned, in a couple of times.
Yes,
in the
not only in the concerto, but also for several forehand things.
Exactly.
Be sure to check out the archives. We're truly lucky to have everything available online the day after, and they will be available, and please check it out.
Yes, exactly. If you are just new to joining us towards the end of this festival, one of the unique opportunities that you do have is if you click at ikif.org/live, there's a whole history of what's been happening in the last 2 weeks, as well as some of the previous year performances. One of the unique features of this particular festival is that the caliber of musicians that have appeared on the stages of this festival. I mean, we've had such luminaries as Alicia de la Rocha giving master classes. We had Georgie Shandor. We had Earl Wild. Of course, all of these people have now since passed away, but these are the caliber of people. And again, this year we have competition winners, everybody from Arnaldo Cohen today, who's the gold medal of Busoni, Jerome Rose, gold medal of Busoni, Alexander Kobrin, winner of the Van Cliburn and Hamamatsu and Busoni and many others. So again, these are pianists at the height of their career, and I will not, you as well, who won many prizes, including top prizes in the Chopin competition and many others. Again, it's a kind of, sort of gathering together of all the forces and all the again, the wonderful part about all of this is the intermingling of the old sort of stalwart musicians and those that have sort of preceded us and been our teachers in many respects, and the new generation of pianists.
They all leave behind legacies, and I think this is truly what will prove in the future that music will continue to live on with the young generation. I see so many young students who are so interested, and I'm sure in the future they are the stars. So. It's wonderful to see how classical music is just living on.
And this is one of the ways that you can sort of take a glimpse of who to watch for.
Yes.
Because you know, with the world of internet and everything that we have and everything that can be seen archived, I mean, any of the people, students that you might hear now, you might remember their names, and all of a sudden you say, oh, I remember that person in this particular festival and such as well. So it's a very exciting and electric opportunity that is here. This evening's performance is going to feature, as Claire said earlier, probably some of the most standard of repertoire in pianist repertoire in our world. We have the Bach Busoni Chaconne, we have the Brahms Handel variations, and of course the second half, the Chopin 4 Scherzi, to hear all of them together. And David Dubal is about to come out and give us a pre-concert lecture about this. And at the end of this, we will
come back and discuss a bit more about the works, perhaps our own personal experiences with them.
These pieces.
And we'll see you in half an hour.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Skachin Teal, and I am the assistant to the festival directors Jerome Rose and Julie Kidersha. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you here tonight and to welcome our online audiences from Argentina, Canada, England, France, Germany, Italy, Israel, India, Russia, Armenia, China, Hong Kong, Japan, and all of our friends from around the world to the Kaye Playhouse at Hunter College. It's an honor to once again introduce David Dubal to all of you. David Dubal has been with the festival since we started 17 years ago. He is a man truly mad for the piano. You can listen to his program, Reflections from the Keyboard, on WQXR on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. and on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. it repeats. On behalf of IKIF, we thank Yamaha Artist Services. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Dubal.
Thank you once again for coming. I know there's a lot of snow outside and it's not easy to get around, but I appreciate it. We're going to have a fantastic recital. The pianist is quite amazing, Arnaldo Cohen. And I want to make an announcement that after much experience he has in playing the four scherzi, he feels that they sound best in concert in the order instead of 1, 2, 3, 4 as they were composed, but as 1, meaning the B minor, 4, the E major, 3, the C sharp minor, and 2, the celebrated B flat minor. Also, we were discussing applause. And because it takes 40 minutes or so, he thinks because of the tension of each work, it's a good idea if you're in the mood and you feel worthy of applauding him, he would like to have that applause after each one because he feels that that will make the cycle work best also. So what do you think of that? Okay. You will be really taken by the performances, I guarantee you. We also have the Brahms Handel variations, and we're going to begin with the Bach Busoni Chaconne in D minor. And that is a very famous work that Busoni himself transcribes from the famous violin partita number 2 in D minor for solo violin. And it's a remarkable, remarkable 14 or 15 minutes because it is the way the 19th century thought of the grandeur of the Baroque via such a place as the Cologne Cathedral, let's say. It's a fantastic piece. Almost all the great pianists have loved playing it, from Della Rocha to Tchaikovsky, Weisenberg. Name the pianist and they would like to attempt this work. It was premiered by Busoni, possibly one of the 5 or 6 pianists I would have most liked to have heard in history. We've talked about I would love to hear Scriabin, Chopin, Beethoven, and Liszt. I would have loved to have heard Busoni. Some think the most comprehensive pianist that ever lived. We only have a half hour of his playing on disc, and it's hardly enough to show us what he was about. But the fact is my own teacher, a very great pianist, Arthur Lesser, was at his 1911 centenary recitals for Liszt's 100th birthday. And I said, well, what did you feel about Busoni? And he said, shocking, just shocking. I have never gotten over it. There was nothing about it that had anything to do with conventional music making. And this is the same with almost anyone that had ever talked about or heard him. So you will be entranced by it. And when you listen, think about the fact that each variation in the Chaconne is 8 measures long, and so it moves 8 measures into a new territory and so forth. All right, we're going to have the Brahms variations and a fugue on a theme by Handel, and it's Opus 24, and it was premiered by Brahms himself. And Brahms indeed played all of his own solo compositions, including the 2 gigantic concertos in premiere, except the Paganini variations, which he considered just a little bit too hard for him, probably meaning he didn't want to practice the intricacy of it. So, we'll begin, Matt, and we'll go through these 25 variations on fugue so you can hear the variations, because you are not, after the theme, going to easily hear the tune. For Brahms, like Beethoven or Bach and the Goldberg, he has his theme, but the theme is based on the harmony. It's not like a melodic set of variations such as Weber or Mozart or many other composers, where every variation you hear the tune. You're not going to hear any tune, you're going to hear the development of the harmonic kernel. And then by the fugue, you'll hear 2 notes, a very pregnant view of the theme itself. The theme is very pregnant, and you will understand it because it has so many possibilities. Knowing Brahms pretty well, I think he could have written 500 variations on this theme. So let's begin, Matt, with the tune itself. You all know it, possibly. Little louder. We'll hear both parts of the theme. It's from a Handel suite for harpsichord. Let's go, Matt, now into a few seconds of variation 1. You still have the aura of the theme. Good. Matt, let's go to variation 2. You hear how the variance and the harmonic complexity is beginning. The Brahms gravitas is beginning. Okay, we go to the next variation. Wonderful contrast. Next variation, Matt. Very Brahmsian, very Brahmsian. You can hear how the bass of the theme is now important to him. Okay. This one, I feel, has the antique flavor. We're going into the Baroque. Beautiful. Let's go to the next one. It's getting murky, as Brahms can get very mystical. Let's go to the next one, Matt. Oh, there's some Schubert in there. Composer he adores. Very heraldic. Could be wonderfully orchestrated. Trumpets, everything. Okay, we go to the next one, Matt. Marvelous job. Thank you. A wonderful continuation of that we just heard. Go to the next one. very grave. The Brahms almost of the later period. Okay, go to the next one. Quite joyous. Brahms is about 30 years old when he's composing this. 32, 33. Okay, next one. Almost like a music box. Very beautiful, and you can hear bits of the mood of the theme. Let's go. Next one. It's a duet, as you hear. Let's go to the next one. Grave. It's absolutely almost like a military maneuver. I hate the word even military. Ooh, you can feel it. Nobody can get the earth into the hand like Brahms. Okay? Again, wonderful contrast, and you're hearing it. Very difficult variation. They're all difficult. Great. To the next. Okay. And you'll also hear in many of these a great deal of chordal work. Not great amounts of passage work, but thicker. Almost an etude. Okay? How he fragments everything up. I mean, everything is so, if you studied the thing carefully, you would see a mind that no Einstein could compare with Brahms. And I'm very serious. Okay? Notice the cohesiveness of all of them. They're not just variations that are little pieces. This is one great structure. Okay? The tender-hearted Brahms, almost giving you a caricature of a minuet. Oh, charming, charming. Okay? Notice the movement of the bass line. The wonderful combination of the grave and the full of light and dark. Okay? Oh, the most charming of the set. A little tinkling tune. Antique again, antique flavor. When I say that, it means he's lurking back into the Baroque world. Okay, fabulous. A beautiful extension of that mood, except now its curves are so different in the dance sense. It's wonderful, okay? The artist is Solomon, by the way. All right, he is now, if you notice, breathing energy into the framework because he is going to be moving now inexorably to the fugue itself, inexorably. Notice this incredible energy. Okay, we'll go to the next variation. Okay, notice the variation will have this a different kind of energy, but it's all moving towards that fugue. 23, 24, and 25 will move you to the culmination. And the only man of his time that could write a real fugue. Fantastic. Let it go. Keep it going. We have it. The longest piece by far is the fugue itself. It would be the model for Reger and all other German composers to Hindemith. This is one of the great fugues in the history of the 19th century. And we're not going to hear any more. Now you know a little bit about each variation. And I think it'll serve its purpose. If it doesn't, I have failed you. We're going to now begin with the scherzi in the order that Mr. Cohen is going to play them in. And we'll begin with, maybe I should read what I say about these scherzi because nobody could ever write about them better. No, it's masterful. It's absolutely masterful. You do know I'm joking with you, right? Up to a point. Because I remember how hard it was to put all of that into a... Chopin composed 4 of his greatest creations under the title Scherzo, a word that means a joke. Was Chopin being ironic? Schumann was baffled when reviewing the B minor Scherzo, the first one. He asked, how are seriousness and gravity to be clothed if jest is to go about in such dark-colored garments? The title seems appropriate only for number 4, which we'll hear right after number 1. What I write about the Scherzo, Opus 20, it's an early work. The first Scherzo was composed most likely in 1834 and first published in 1835. Later, when it was issued in England under the title The Infernal Banquet, Chopin, always a purist and opposed to any literary or pictorial allusions, had a fit. He made the publisher stop printing it. The opening must have shocked his contemporaries. Indeed, its almost repellent realism still astonishes. Is this not like a shriek of despair? The material is feverishly restless and tragic in nature, and the middle section marked Molto più lento is based on a Polish Christmas carol, Sleep, Jesus, Sleep, and it's one of Chopin's few uses of actual folk material. And the section is worked out in the dreamiest manner, you'll hear it, until the scherzo's opening chord in the middle plunges you back into the scherzo itself. The first section, which is then repeated, ends in a coda of barbaric splendor, which closes with furious chromatic octaves, using all of the notes. Let's begin, Matt, with a little bit of that scherzo. It's a screech. Quite repellent. Ugh, I hate it, but I love it so much. Thorny, so thorny. Now watch how he develops it now, that thorniness. Watch this. Or listen. Pulls it out of nowhere. Ugh, it's a tornado. See if you could move a little to the great lyric section. Go forward. Here we go. Sleep, Jesus, sleep. Oh, what a tune. To call it a tune is a pathetic thing. Notice the movement of the Of course, no human has ever written a melody like a Chopinesque melody. It can go on and on. This is the perhaps greatest melodic thinker of the Romantic age. Schubert we consider still classical at the edge. Here we go again. Notice how the accompaniment is. A heavenly melody. If I could have composed it, I would have been a god. And Chopin was a god, the god of melody. Okay, now we're going to talk about the fourth scherzo that we'll hear. And you can applaud after this because there's such tensions. The fourth scherzo in E major is an ethereal composition and it's bathed in light. It's the longest of the four. It's the only real scherzo, which means it's full of improvisational jokes and so forth. It ripples over the expanse of the keyboard. It is Chopin in a blessed moment. Even though it's at his late period and he's quite ill, he coughs and coughs all day long. The Countess d'Agoult, Liszt's girlfriend, said, Chopin coughs and he coughs constantly, but he coughs beautifully. You see, in everything he did, it was rare and fastidious and beautiful, even coughing himself to death. It's a blessed moment, improvising and happy. His nerves are calm, and his deadly disease seems in check. Even the long trio of seraphic lyric beauty has no sign of morbidezza. The passage work is elegant. Oh my God, is it elegant? You can just see Chopin improvising it in the beginning of its birth. It is perhaps the most difficult even of the four scherzi, which are all terribly difficult. So we're going to now hear the fourth scherzo, and we'll begin it and listen to this light fantastic, tripping the light fantastic. We're ready. almost Mendelssohnian in its sunlit feel. This is so difficult that I would hope that if you ever try it, no, but never try it. Only the heroes of the keyboard can play the Scherzi, believe me. Okay. The trio is exquisite. Can we go as fast as we can to see if we can get into this barcarolle-like melody? Let's see what happens. Good. You are something. Listen to this. Notice the length of the melody. Seraphic beauty, as I say. Notice this now. Downward. He continues its tremendous length. To write a long melody is one of the most difficult things in music. The tenderness is unbelievable, and we're in Venice, no doubt about it. He loves that Venetian sound of the barcarolle in the left hand. It'll end in a coda which Ravel learned a great deal. How long it goes on. Still moving, still moving. Okay, and we have here one of the great melodies of the Romantic age. We can say that almost every great melody of Chopin is one of the great melodies of the Romantic age. If he was not the greatest harmonist that he was, which indeed he is the greatest of the 19th century, there'd be no Wagner, nothing after him. If he was only that melodist, he would be immortal. All right, we're going to go now to the third Scherzo, and I'll read about it. The third Scherzo opens with an almost Lisztian introduction, quite declamatory, my friends, leading to a subject in octaves of pent-up energy. Remember, every word that I write is exactly what I'm after. The key changes to D-flat major from C-sharp minor. And we have a chorale-like subject interspersed with delicate falling arpeggios, and you'll hear them in both hands. Louis Kentner thinks of it as a Wagnerian melody of astonishing beauty, recalling the sound of tubas, harps, and all the apoplectic orchestra of Valhalla. End of quote. This is the most terse, ironic, and tightly constructed of the four Scherzi. It's 7 minutes with an almost Beethovenian grandeur. And the finger-bursting coda rises to emotional heights, bringing the score to a rhetorical ending. It's Opus 39. It's dedicated to his student Gutmann, who played it and broke some strings, and Chopin, he thought, would be furious, and he said, "Ah, my boy, if I could play it that loud, I would." So we're going to hear the beginning. Notice this irregular first movement, getting 4 notes into the 3. All Scherzi are 3/4 time, except every single measure must be in 1 beat. Should not really be counted in 3. Let's go. That's true Lisztian rhetoric. Now the pent-up energy of the octaves. Chopin's left hand, by the way, is contrapuntally incredibly extraordinary. I mean, the thinker that he is the more we understand him, the more we know what kind of brain he had. Okay, push it forward, and we're going to go to the chorale-like theme. Move forward. Okay, now you can hear the Wagnerian tubas. He introduces it. And here comes the arpeggiation. Exquisite. Iridescent. The greatest piano thinker the world had ever known. A true romantic chorale interspersed with these arpeggiations. A dark gray. Back to it. Sweeter. Played quite slowly as compared to others, but I like it. Okay. We're done. We're done, Matt. Thank you. Excellent performance, by the way. I know you've worked very hard on these Scherzi. We're going to the most celebrated one, called the B-flat minor, number 2, and we'll end with that. And this was so popular in the 19th century that it got to be called the governess Scherzo, because every English governess tried to learn it. It was just one of those things you did, but none of them could ever play him very well. And because the piece was played so badly, Liszt refused anyone in his master classes to ever play it, for it was once a specialty of his, and the idea that had become hackneyed was not funny to him. So the point is today it is not as popular, but notice, just notice the amazing question and answer which begins this. I won't read now what I say because we're moving towards lateness, but I want you to hear the opening. Chopin said, I want it like a charnel house, a death house. Here we are. Now we're going to enter into one of the great melodies of the world with sextuplets in the left hand. Within the Scherzo, you'll hear this 3 times. The third will lead to a change of key with 3 sharps, which was probably one of the most audacious things that the 1830s saw. Okay, you can stop now, and he will repeat that material exactly, and then he will move into 3 sharps in a trio of extraordinary beauty. I wonder what I actually said of that. I don't know. I can say that I began this work at 14, and I'm still working on it. It will, this middle section, be long and intricate, and it will have a leggero development of the theme, and will then return to what we heard, the charnel house tune, and then end on a D-flat major chord, not a B-flat minor. Today we have no time for any questions, and since you never asked me any, nothing has changed. Take care and thank you.
And welcome back, and we've just finished listening to David Dubal do a pre-concert lecture of this evening's performance by Arnaldo Cohen at the 17th International Keyboard Institute and Festival in New York City at Hunter College in Kaye's Playhouse. My name is Eduard Zilberkant. I'm joined here by Claire Huangzi again. And again, David is quite colorful in his presentation of this really sort of a staple of piano repertoire program of everything. So.
For those of you just joining us, we will be hearing the Bach, Busoni, Chaconne this evening, Brahms, Handel Variations, and the 4 Scherzi by Chopin.
And basically, if you did not notice, and if you know the 4 scherzos, one of the things that is unique going to be happening today is that Arnaldo Cohen believes that the order of the scherzos, he's not going to be performing them in the order that they were written. Mm-hmm. So he's going to play number 1, then officially number 4, then number 3, and then concluding with number 2.
But fitting end, I
yeah,
think.
Exactly.
He saves the most popular one for last, and I think
in many respects.
In
many respects, it's interesting about this program that really what we have is 3 sort of pianist composers. Yeah. Works. We have the Bach, Busoni. I mean, you could certainly say Bach was an incredible keyboardist himself, and then of course Busoni.
Busoni was a virtuoso.
Who transcribed this piece, and of course Brahms, who started out as an incredible piano virtuoso, then eventually, even throughout his whole life, premiered most of the works that he composed for the piano, and then of course Chopin, who
the ultimate pianist composer,
and wrote exclusively for the piano in that sense. But interesting thing about the Bach, Busoni, Chaconne, it is based on the second violin partita of
one movement
of the
violin partita,
exactly the Chaconne movement, and it is not the only transcription that we have actually as pianists for this. Brahms composed a transcription of this particular piece as well, but it's for left hand alone.
Yes, and I think for you connoisseurs out there, you would know that the Brahms is perhaps more exactly the same as the
authentic
Bach.
In some ways, exactly, because it really keeps it to almost the notes that Bach wrote.
Yeah,
and
in a way, it's one hand, and the violin is also just one hand playing the melody. It's actually a very good transcription, and people say that it is the real fitting one. However, in my opinion, the Busoni adds on a whole new dimension to the work, and he really brought to life this Baroque piece that played in the grand, virtuoso, romantic style with sweeping things and with all kinds of techniques that were not known at all, that were impossible to be played on the harpsichord in those
Busoni
days.
was one of the great late 1800s, early 1900s pianists, and he was really a tremendous virtuoso, a very colorful pianist. Some of his works that he composed himself are extremely challenging.
Yes,
he has his sonatinas.
And he has a concerto, extremely.
Of course, one of the probably the longest concertos.
Yes.
And it has not only I think 4 movements, but has a male choir.
Yes.
In the conclusion and everything. I believe the concerto's literally over an hour long. As far as those type of pieces. But he's a tremendous virtuoso, and what he does with the Bach Chaconne is he is basically making it not as a transcription of violin music, but he's creating his own thing. It's
The
very
melody stays the same. I mean, you can follow exactly when you listen to the. As a matter of fact, I learned the Bach Busoni Chaconne first before I even heard the partita for the first time. I was very young, and I remember after I'd learned the piece, I decided to listen to the original version, and I could follow exactly. He didn't really add anything in terms of bars or new melodies, new ideas. Instead, he was rather just harmonizing, creating more romantic harmonization of the chords and. Just adding in terms of arpeggios, flourishes to the music.
Exactly. And very orchestral in sounding. I mean, you can literally hear, in many respects, one of the things Busoni is also very famous for in transcribing of Bach, he took a lot of chorales, which are very short little organ preludes, and then he transcribed tremendously for the piano, and again, evoking the sound of the organ, of which you're possibly to do on the piano. So you hear a lot of this from the Chaconne, that he takes the violin piece, which is, the whole idea of the Chaconne is a very ground bass. You have the initial harmony, and that harmony will keep repeating itself over and over in eight bar phrases, and that's sort of I guess the unity of the first half is that we have the Bach's variations as by Chaconne, or Busoni, and Busoni taking Bach, and then you have Brahms, who takes another Baroque composer, Handel, which is a movement actually from one of his keyboard suites of Handel, a beautiful, beautiful melody, and then Brahms takes upon himself to do not, let's say 12 or something like that, but 24 plus a few. Exactly. So you have this incredible amount of material, and again, it's really unique what Brahms does with it. It's a very orchestral interpretation of a Baroque piece.
I would say the two pieces are very good complements to each other, and I would just like to add that the Brahms Handel variations, I never felt that it was quite enough in programs. It's always been somehow in the shadows after the Paganini variations, for example. Those are more played, those are considered more virtuosic, perhaps more showpieces. But I think the Handel variations, they are along in the same league as the Beethoven Diabelli, as the Bach Goldberg even, so to say. And I would say that it's really one of the grandest pieces he has written. I mean, the finale with the Fugue, you almost feel like this is, you are entering the golden gates almost, like you have the same feeling you get, at least I get it, as when I listen to the Mussorgsky, the Great Gates of Kiev, the same kind of grand open feeling.
And it's interesting that in the 19th century there was obviously a lot of sort of a debate of who is actually in the tradition, who is the follower or who's the disciple of Beethoven. And you had two camps. You had the Wagner-Liszt camp and you had the Schumann-Brahms camp. And it is generally accepted that it is Brahms who is the true disciple of Beethoven's style, because he sort of keeps to the idea of how Beethoven composed, and even in these variations, as Claire just mentioned, that Beethoven was very much interested in the variation form. One of his largest pieces, the Dubal variations, in the end of Beethoven's life, especially in his piano compositions writing, in his sonatas, variations played a major part. The last movement of 109, a sonata which we'll hear tomorrow night. The same thing with 111. The last sonata that he composed is a theme in variations.
I find also he was also extremely interested in the fugue form, and he attempted that quite a few times in his last few sonatas as well.
Especially with the Hammerklavier, that you have the most incredible last movement. But even throughout, the late period of Beethoven is known for variations and fugal writing that was very prevalent. And we also know that Beethoven was not a melodist, he was a motivist, and the way he's composing. Now we look at Brahms. The same thing can be said of Brahms. Brahms, even though he can write a melody, and we've had some beautiful songs and things like that, but Brahms struggled his whole life, and his idea, basically he had sort of, he always said the shadow of Beethoven was so prevalent in Brahms's life that it took him almost 30 years before he attempted to write the first symphony. He would not dare to come, and every time he tried, it first imitated the style of Beethoven. His first attempt at a symphony came in the key of D minor, which is the same key as the Ninth Symphony, and eventually turned into a magnificent first piano concerto, because he could not get out of the piano out of that. So actually, when you ever hear the Brahms first piano concerto, it was originally meant as a symphony. And if you know the opening tutti of the orchestra for that particular concerto, it
like
is
it.
a symphony.
Yes.
I mean, those concertos
Yes.
are. And then when you see Brahms composing, Brahms was very much into chamber music, which is very important in Beethoven's writing. And you have also with the idea of not only the Handel variations that of Brahms, but there are so many other sets of variations. You mentioned the famous Paganini variations, but then there's Schumann
Original
variations,
themes, yeah.
there's Hungarian theme variations, there's a few other things. So there are constant information that this. So you actually have a very stylistic and a true disciple of Beethoven in Brahms.
Yeah.
And with these variations, you will hear how the whole thing is put together and where everything is evolving.
Absolutely. I would say that the one word I can use to describe Brahms' music is the word grand. And this piece, from the very beginning, you hear such a pure idea. It's like such a simple theme. And what he comes out of it, what he builds out of it in these 24 variations with the fugue, it really creates this whole journey. A real climax is coming only at the very end. It's a very long journey that we must travel, and he goes about it in such a gradual, such a patient way. And this is also something that happens in Beethoven's music.
Exactly.
So,
And in many respects, these variations are very orchestral sounding,
Yes.
like a lot of Brahms's
a
keyboard
lot of his
music
keyboard
is.
music, yeah, his sonatas. I mean, I wouldn't call them sonatas. I would
Exactly,
absolutely just call
symphonies
them
for
a symphony.
piano. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, we're about to start the first half of the concert. Please join us at Intermission with Jerome Rose. We'll be interviewing Victor Rosenbaum, who will be playing tomorrow evening's concert. And we hope to see you tomorrow evening. I hope you enjoy the concert.
Thank you very much, and see you again.
Well, we've just finished the first half of Arnaldo Cohen's concert, the Brahms Handel Variations, and it has been an absolutely wonderful success. I'm sitting in the Kaye Playhouse, and I have with me Victor Rosenbaum. I'm Jerome Rose, the director of the festival, and I'm delighted to have my friend, colleague of practically half a century, if not longer, Victor Rosenbaum with me. He is an absolutely magnificent pianist. He will be performing tomorrow night the three last sonatas of Ludwig van Beethoven. This is something that I'm sure he's lived with for more than a half century, and we are more than delighted to have him here. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's quite an occasion. As you know, we're now, and this is the 13th concert, and we're going to have you tomorrow night, and we're getting close to the very end of this festival. It's going to be something very special having you here, because you and I share a very common language and a very common purpose. We both worked with the great American pianist Leonard Schur, who was the great disciple of Arthur Schnabel, and in a way we certainly had it at the source. And it's very, very exciting to have you here. Tell me a little bit more about your desire to play these three great works, and what you've lived with them yourself, and it's a wonderful occasion to have you on the stage of the Kaye Playhouse.
Well, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to be at the festival. I think this is my 15th time.
Yes.
And it's really grown and become a major world event, and something that I'm very happy to be part of, and that you should be very proud of having developed all these years.
Well, I am very proud of it, and we are very excited about having, I think maybe at one point I might have done those three sonatas, but certainly it's something that every pianist in the world should know, and everyone should play this trilogy, because each one of these sonatas segues into the next, and it's a wonderful thing that you have done it in this form. Tell me about why you chose this format as opposed to just a single sonata.
Well, I love these three pieces, and at three different times in my life I've done the group of them together as a trilogy. The first time was more than, I suppose, 35 years ago, and then again about 12 years ago when I recorded them, and then this summer. I've played two of the three quite a lot separately in different occasions, and but only in those three different periods have put them together as a program. And somehow they really, as you say, have so much to do with each other that to experience them that way gives a special insight and I think perspective on the three pieces. Of course, playing each one separately is absolutely valid musically, and including it on a different kind of mixed program makes a lot of musical sense. But the three sonatas were written as a commission between 1820 and 1822. Beethoven died 5 years later, so they're not his very latest or last works, but they're his last sonatas, and I think he definitely wrote them with the idea that these three would culminate his
certainly
of 32
the epic Opus 111. I have to bring in a little anecdote because we would like to talk, I'm sure, because one of the things about the Keyboard Festival is how did we get here and who are the greater influences in our lives and our teachers. I remember as an 18-year-old boy learning Opus 109, and I remember Leonard Schur saying, well, you learn it now, so 50 years from today, you'll learn how to play it. And in some ways, this is sort of a moment in your life where you learned them as a young man, and now the maturity and the experience and all the things that we've lived through, and that we're bringing to this great epic three trilogies. You know, this is something very important.
Well, there's no doubt that our own life experience and experience teaching the pieces and probing more deeply into them every time we return to them does make the experience more meaningful in some ways. I found that this time, revisiting them, I'm having a very different perspective on them. I mean, basic concept is not so changed, my understanding of how the piece is put together, but feeling for pacing and timing and interrelationships of elements.
Well, have we
is
traditionally
somewhat
gotten
different.
slower with age? What do you think about that? Do you think your tempos have changed?
Some things are slower, but some things are faster.
That's even better. So it's an exciting occasion. Now tell me a little bit about your remembrance of Leonard Schuer, because very few people realize that this great European Viennese tradition was transferred back to the United States, and both of us were able to participate with this. So tell me your studies with Schuer, and did you actually learn any of these pieces with him?
Yes, I learned two of them, Opus 109 and 110, the first two of the three. And yes, it was revelatory. When I teach them, when I play them, there are certain things that he pointed out that always come back. But it isn't so much in terms of specific things, even though he was, as a teacher, extremely detailed, as you know.
Yes, of
and
course.
very demanding. At the beginning of lessons with him, sometimes you would cover only a few measures.
Right.
And I'm sure you had that experience too. And then as time went along, you could go through larger swaths of musical material in a lesson.
Well, I love
But
the
he
fact that he taught in detail, because this is not something that one finds that much today, you know, where that score is so sacred and that every detail of that score is sacred. And that's something that you and I, of course, in our teaching really believe. I mean, I still hear music after those years of having studied with him, even though I've evolved. I still hear a phrase put together the way he made us think about a phrase being put together.
Yeah. But the main thing was that he really made you appreciate the importance of the choices you made. And he would, in his case, he was insistent that you would at least be able to experience it his way. A lot of teachers don't even believe in that.
Well,
Philosophically, they say, you do it your way, my dear. I'm here just to help you make it better. But he believed more deeply in the music than that. He believed there was a meaning in the music, a meaning to be found, and that the details mattered. And if he heard something that affected the expressiveness of the music, he wanted you to be able to at least experience it, whether or not you ultimately later in your
Right.
life chose to follow that
well,
particular
today I was
path.
mentioning, as I was teaching myself, and I used an example and as a metaphor that someone should go to the Metropolitan Museum, which is really right next door, and look at the paintings of Franz Hals to see what great and gorgeous, beautiful detail means, and how exciting it is when you have the entire canvas covered with such magnificence and such craftsmanship. And I said, this is so important today, that young pianists realize that every phrase has to be crafted, every note is so important, and they have to hear this.
Yes.
And of course, you and I have spent a lifetime with this. Now,
There has to be
yeah.
meaning in every moment of music. It has to be thoughtful and yet have a sense of immediacy at the same time, not a calculated sort of mathematical or academic feeling as you experience it, but the thought goes into it. And I think, coming back to Leonard Schuer's teaching for a moment, it's the importance of making those choices that I think he really instilled in me, that it didn't matter just to do it nicely one way or another, and especially in the case of Beethoven, who we know in his own compositional craft didn't proceed simply by intuition or inspiration.
Well, one of the great craftsmen, the structural craftsman, is so
and
amazing.
he anguished about choices.
Of course, and then that's what makes him so
You can see it in
great.
the manuscripts,
You
with
see, of
crossings
course,
out and trying
yes.
this. I was just showing someone today about the end of the first movement of Opus 110, where Beethoven actually struggled with how to end that movement, and then finally decided to foreshadow the Fugue theme in the last two measures.
Magnificently done, and we're happy to do this. Victor, tell me a little bit about, because you and I sort of share a common heritage and name as well. Now, growing up in
Rose?
Indianapolis, Rose does.
Rose Rosenbaum.
Rose Rosenbaum, absolutely. Actually, it was Victor Borge's name as well. So,
Yes.
interestingly, tell me, as an American growing up in Indianapolis, and no, what brought you to the piano, and give me a little bit what took you all the way. You were the director of the Langy School. You've had a tremendous career at New England Conservatory. You've taught all over the world. I know you've given master classes and concerts all over the world. Tell me about what it was like, and how did you come up? Coming in from Indianapolis, was your parental influence? What happened there?
My parents were music lovers, so there was music in the house. But the story goes that I was in a restaurant where a cocktail pianist was playing when I was about 4 years old. And I just went over and stood staring and watching him for about an hour. And then when I came home, I started playing the piano on tabletops. And that gave my parents...
So you were a young Mozart.
Not really, but Mozart had more than a tabletop.
I do
so
have
he
to
could start
add, because you
composing.
are one of the few pianists in the world who's ever played Laura for Gene Tierney herself, the real Laura. And that happened in Aspen, Colorado. But I'm sorry to intercede that a little bit, but when you talk about cocktail pianists, you were the best.
Well, I don't know if I was the best, but that was a funny experience.
So tell me, all right, so you're playing on tabletops, and what happened after that?
Well, so my parents thought I had an interest in the piano. We got an upright piano through an ad in the paper, and I started lessons at a little over five and a half. And it turns out that old upright was a half tone low, and I started developing so-called perfect pitch to the wrong pitch.
Well, you were a Baroque
So-
man,
So-
that was probably the right pitch 200 years ago.
Yes, if I were playing only
Yes.
Bach. I was fortunate to have a wonderfully imaginative first piano teacher for first 8 years, who, in addition to piano lessons, had me doing theory and some little composition and drum lessons for a few months when she thought that would be good for my rhythm, and modern dance accompaniment when I was 13 to teach me about musical gesture. And she was always trying things herself, and
So a
and
very good
asking-
grounded development, which is very
asking
important.
me to be
Yes.
experimental and open to new ideas. And then I switched teachers in high school and went to Aspen, and that's where you and I met. I think I was 15 or 16. I don't know which summers you were there, but my first summer I was 15, and of course that was a big eye-opener to see great musicians from all over and to study with world-class teachers. And that was an experience that was bound to either discourage me or kind of confirm my interest in music. And
So when-
fortunately,
yeah.
it went the second way. I became very inspired by the experience, got more serious about playing, came to the East Coast for college, and had met Leonard Schur at Aspen, where he taught, although I had studied the first 2 years at Aspen with Rosina Levine, the great
The great
Russian
pedagogue, of
teacher
course,
who-
teacher of Van
Van
Cliburn.
Cliburn,
Van
most
Cliburn, of
famously.
course, of course.
but there was something about Schur's deeply insightful
Well,
teaching.
you are the great intellect, and you have your PhD from Princeton.
It's not a PhD. In all
It's a-
honesty, I have to say it's only an MFA, but never mind. We won't go there.
I thought it was. Anyway, you are one of the great scholars, and you are certainly one of the great scholars of this repertoire that you are playing tomorrow night. I'm delighted that you're here. I'm delighted that you will be on the stage of the Kaye Playhouse, and I really look forward to this event. The second half of this concert with Arnaldo Cohen is about to start, and he will be performing the Four Scherzi of Frédéric Chopin. We look forward to seeing you. Please stay tuned, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night, as well as Alexander Kobrin, and then we have Friday night, Alexander Kobrin, and we have the prestige concert of the three great prize winners, Stanislav Lasenko, and we have Meiting Ma, and we have Adam Golka. This will be a wonderful Saturday night closing. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.